This is the most important thing I've ever been part of. I really felt like I was drugged across the country to Ashland by my hair. This beautiful fungus perfectly fits our serotonin receptors. That's not accidental. She talked to a light socket for 5 hours and she finally said, okay, I guess you're right. I can be enough. I guess I'm enough. Okay. I don't have to keep trying so hard. I am actually enough. Psilocybin, her fundamental lesson is be kind to yourself. I never looked back after that. It was like, ooh, I'm home.
Bonny Koeber was a medical doctor for over 30 years. And then at 69 years old, she walked not away because she had to, but towards something deeper that was calling. And now she works as a psilocybin facilitator in Ashland, Oregon, where she sits with people as they face trauma, transformation, and sometimes a tiny talking light socket, one that finally gets through to them that they're enough. This is not a retirement story. This is reinvention, one step at a time, through loss, through intuition, through a kind of trust that most people never dare. Bonnie didn't find her purpose. She just kept walking until it revealed itself. This is Sequel Opportunities, and I'm Jiri Yoshida. And if you stay until the end, I'll share what this conversation stirred up in me. No script, just me. Bonnie, hello, welcome.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy we're having this conversation. Thank you for joining us. I want to jump right in. You made a gigantic career transition. You had a career as an MD, as an anesthesiologist, and now you are a psilocybin facilitator. Can you tell us what a psilocybin facilitator does?
In the state of Oregon, about 2 years ago, psilocybin was made legal to do in centers that are called facilitation centers. They have rooms that are set up to be comfortable for a person to lay down and experience psilocybin for a period of time, usually 5 to 6 hours. And so they're legal facilitation centers that we are independent contractors with. I work with Satya Therapeutics in Ashland, Oregon, as an independent contractor, and we find clients or they find us, and we figure out dosing strategies for what they need, and we administer magic mushroom or psilocybin to them for a variety of reasons. Many of those reasons include depression, anxiety, PTSD, sometimes just spiritual awakening or spiritual deepening, curiosity, lots of different reasons that people seek the therapy with psilocybin. But it is the honor of my life to offer this medicine that's been around for millennia, longer than that on the planet, longer than we've been on the planet. So it's quite the honor.
What is it like when somebody goes through a psilocybin experience?
So every journey for every person that I've encountered has been completely different, very individual. The start of the day is always the same. There's a lot of paperwork for the state of Oregon that has to be done and filed. Then there's payment for the services that is done with Satya and myself, credit card usage to pay for the services. And then the psilocybin is brought into the room. We make it into a tea with lemon juice, water, and ground up mushroom. And the clients drink it, not like tequila, but slowly stirring and sipping. In about 15 minutes, they begin to feel the onset, sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower. Usually starts for most people ringing in your ears. It's really common. If you're looking at a picture on the wall, it may shift to the left or right a little bit, and you're kind of like, oh, did that picture just move? After that, there's a variety of geometric colors, shapes and colors that sort of fill the room and the ceiling and the floor. And then after that, that's kind of standard for most people. Then it goes wherever you need to go individually. Some people go back and visit their childhood. Some people may talk to people that they're not with any longer. People see all kinds of things. No one's is ever the same. But I figure that whatever they need to see is what they will see. My job is to keep them safe in that space because some people move a lot and balance is effective with psilocybin. So if you stand up, you might fall over. So if you stand up, our job is to keep you upright and to help you get back on your bed to lay down. I keep a journal for people. If they talk, I write down what they say during the journey. Most people's journey lasts 5 to 6 hours. And our job in reality is to keep you very safe in that space. I've had a few clients who would have liked to have leave the building, and it would be difficult or dangerous for you to leave the building on your own under the use of psilocybin. So again, our job is to keep you safe in that space, to let you experience what you need to experience because you're in a very vulnerable position, but to do so in safety with someone watching over you.
Psilocybin is classified as a psychedelic. Does that mean that the person who's taking it always hallucinates?
So if someone is not taking medication that would block hallucinations, I would say yes, depending on the dose. The doses that we give at Satya would cause hallucinations, much like LSD, same type of receptor, but psilocybin is a natural product from the earth. There are medicines that people can take that will block the hallucinogenic effect of psilocybin. However, in the literature, that hallucinations do not seem to be required for improvement. If you're coming for depression, I'll use an example. If you're coming to be helped with your depression and you're on a medicine called Cymbalta, which is a common antidepressant medicine, it will block almost 100% of any visuals or colors that you might see. But invariably, the majority of those people get better without any hallucinations. So research has been done that they give psilocybin and then give a antipsychotic or a medicine that will block hallucinations. And then they look at their depression, and the depression scores are the same with or without the hallucination. So doesn't seem to be necessary. It's an interesting part of the journey for most people, but I don't believe it's required to improve their health.
You said that when people are in this experience, that sometimes they'll want to get up and walk around. So is it typical that somebody's just sitting there with their eyes open and having this experience? Do they lay down, have their eyes closed? How is it that they experience it physically? What are they doing?
Right. So the rooms at Satya, if you walked into a typical room, there will be a couch on the far side of the wall. That's really a twin bed that different people make it up to look different ways. Different facilitators make the bed up different ways. There's often a chair at the end of that bed where someone can sit in a chair. I've actually had two people who sat in the chair the entire time of their journey. Most everyone else either starts sitting in the bed or sitting in the chair while they drink the tea. And then they sort of start getting dizzy and they go, I think I'm going to lay down. And they go and lay down. And there's a plethora of pillows against the wall, lots of blankets. The beds are very comfortable. And most people stay in bed, although some people want to stand up. And some people can do that successfully, other people cannot. Some people get on the floor and move around on the floor. Everyone is a little different. But again, whatever you do, our job is to support you in that space to keep you from getting hurt, from falling down or bumping your head or something like that.
When that does start happening and people are moving around, and you say it's the job of the facilitator to make sure that you stay safe in that space, what do you do? Do you let them wander around until you see that they're going to bump into a wall?
If somebody stands up, I stand up. I don't stand up very often in a room because standing up when someone's on hallucinogenics is a little frightening because we seem really big. But I will, if someone stands up, I will sit up in my chair and be ready to grab them. If I see that they're going to stand up and they're steady, I may stay on the edge of my chair and just watch them. If they start walking around and they're not doing that very successfully, I will stand up and put my arms on their shoulder and say, I don't want you to fall. Why don't we lie back down? If they need to go to the bathroom, I'll give them my hands and stand them up and then either have their hands on my shoulders and mine on theirs, and we'll guide them down the hallway safely into the bathroom where they can do their business and then come back out. So we're always with them. Occasionally, clients necessitate us going into the bathroom with them. That's usually people who are on blood thinners are the ones that usually have us in the bathroom because we can't afford for them to stand up and fall over because they would bleed in their head. Most people, we try to give a little privacy in the bathroom as much as we can. There's always an opposite sex person in the building if someone needs assistance in the bathroom. We adjust our movement to how the client's moving. I would say the majority of people lie down and are fairly still, but there are some people who move a lot.
Does that mean that a person who is under the influence of psilocybin is going to be lucid this whole time? Are they going to know that they need to go to the bathroom? Will they know to ask you? How does that work?
So that's really dose dependent for the most part. The higher the dose, the less lucid you might be. There are some people, however, even with 50 milligrams, the maximum dose of psilocybin, if you say their name, they'll say, huh? Or I'll say, do you need something? Or if they're looking at me and I'll go, it's still Bonnie over here. It's still me. And they'll acknowledge that. Other people, you can say their name and they don't respond at all. They're just gone. So again, it really, everybody metabolizes psilocybin a little bit differently. Everyone reacts to it a little bit differently. And so everything is different. Every single person is different than the one that you did before.
How else would you describe your personal feeling about your role as a psilocybin facilitator? Do you have a credo? Is it different than what somebody else might see their role as?
That's a really good question. I approach psilocybin from a little bit of a shamanistic viewpoint. I don't think everything that's in the universe is benign. And when you're in a state of altered consciousness, much like meditation, your psychological self is open to the universe. And so I use a lot of sage and Tibetan singing bowls and things like that to make the energy in the room be as benevolent as I can. My intuition is really sharp for feeling negative or unwanted energy. And I'm very good at getting that energy out of the room, whatever means I do that. And I think that allows the client to be open to whatever is there because everything that's in that room is benevolent. So other people may not approach it in that way. They may look at it strictly scientifically as you're going to take this medicine, you're going to hallucinate, and you're going to finish in 6 hours and go home. I just don't do that. I have a shaman in Ashland who I work with who helps me know how to keep energy in rooms benevolent, and that I take that very seriously to keep people a different form of safe in that space, but safe from anything else in the universe that can come into that space. And a lot of people have energies inside them that are not good for them, and those energies come out during these journeys. I don't want that energy to go home with me, so I want it to come into that room and leave that room and not go home with them and not go home with me. So I approach it a little bit differently, not particularly woo-woo, but a little bit woo-woo. I don't know that any other facilitators that I know approach it from that viewpoint. I had experience when I first started that pushed me in that direction. And I'd done some shaman training in the past and my other things that I've done in my lifetime. So I just incorporated it into this practice, and it's been really good. It's been really, I think, for my clients, very helpful.
When you say that you've had some other experiences in other parts of your life, what do you mean?
I trained with a woman in Santa Fe for a while who is a shaman there. And the lady in Ashland, who is a shaman who works with me, did train with her for a very long time. So I seek out ways to keep energy benevolent. It's much like people using sage to clean negative energies out of their home. I do the same thing, but I do it at Satya with great intention of keeping that space safe and benevolent for my client. So other experiences, not really a lot. I did anesthesia forever and sort of branched off in my mid-50s into hallucinogenics and kind of ended up here with the combination of both those things.
You come from being an anesthesiologist, and we're just talking about this world that can be very medical, but that you bring this element that's energetic and it feels very spiritual. So you have this life as a medical doctor, which is very science-based. Why don't you share with us a little bit about what you did as an anesthesiologist, how long you did it? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I practiced anesthesia for a little over 30 years. I had a fellowship in obstetrical anesthesia, meaning that I worked usually with pregnant women, epidurals, C-sections, labor, babies being born, lots of what I thought was really fun stuff. I worked in the main operating room maybe 25% of the time, and the rest of the time was on labor and delivery. So most of my clients or patients were awake. They were having babies. Sometimes they went to sleep for C-sections, but usually they were awake to see their child born. I really loved it. I loved the nurses I worked with in particular. They were exceptional at both institutions I worked in. I worked at Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas for about, gosh, 20 years, I guess, and then in San Antonio at the University of Texas for about 15 years. And I really, really enjoyed it. They were both teaching hospitals. So I had anesthesia residents that I helped train from the time they started until they graduated, and still keep up with a lot of them all over the country. Residents are really interesting. They're young, they're intelligent, they're really fun to work with. So I enjoyed it. I miss hanging out with them.
During this time, was there ever a moment that you thought, okay, I don't want to be doing this anymore? Or were you enjoying it the whole time? Did it ever cross your mind that you wanted to do something else?
No, I really enjoyed it. I had when I lived in San Antonio, my husband died very unexpectedly from a heart attack in 2019. And for whatever reason, that sort of closed the door on anesthesia. I still did it for a year, I still worked for a year, but I lost interest in it. And I just was paid a lot of money, and I didn't think I was earning the money that they paid me. I mean, I did my job, I took care of patients, I loved that part, but I didn't want to teach. My desire to teach was, it was just gone. And so I retired in the end of 2019. And in 2020, I moved to Oregon. My spiritual teacher lives in the city of Ashland. Her name is Gangaji. Her support sort of got me through that year after my husband died. And I had a really profound spiritual awakening and wanted to move to where she was. And so I packed my things in the back of my car and drove across the country to Ashland. And I've been here ever since. And her husband, his name is Eli. He wanted to start a psilocybin facilitator program, and he invited me to be an instructor in that program and also to go to school at the same time, because there were no schools at that time. It was when it was first new. So I was a student and an instructor at the same time in that school, and finished about 2 years ago and have been practicing ever since. And it is truly the most important thing I've ever done in my life. I feel like anesthesia prepared me for this and not the other way around. Anesthesia allowed me to understand the physiology that's happening in front of me with psilocybin and clients with their medicines, and to make sure that they're safe medically and mentally in that space. So it really, I mean, anesthesia is really just watching people in the dark for hours on end, right? It's surgery, it's dark, you're sitting in a chair. It's the same thing without all the monitors and the bells and whistles. So I'm staring at one person for 5 or 6 hours in a room that's often dark, and I feel right at home. That's what I've done my whole life.
Take me back to that time when it just stopped working. So you had been going along, everything's fine. And were you just at work one day and you said, I don't want to be here? What was happening?
When Stephen died, I took about 3 months off from work. I owe a debt of gratitude to the university because they allowed me to do that, to kind of get my feet back underneath me before I came back to work. And somewhere in that 3-month period, my desire to do anesthesia just stopped. And that is the time when I had a very profound spiritual awakening with a man, Papaji, who is my teacher, Gangaji's teacher. And my interest became different than anesthesia. My interest was in people's spiritual well-being, in my own spiritual well-being, in my own mental well-being. And that did not include anesthesia. So I did it. I went back to work and I mulled it over for a while, but probably by July or August, I had turned my resignation in to finish the end of December. And despite conversations trying to get me to change that plan, that was the plan that I retired on the 31st of December of that year and moved to Austin from San Antonio. But it was too busy, too many cars, too many people. And I really felt like I was dragged across the country to Ashland by my hair, sort of as not a, this is not an option. You're moving to Ashland. And I just went along with it. I was like, fine, I'll move to Ashland. And it's beautiful. I felt like I was a pawn being moved on a chessboard. And if I tried to move the pieces, I would really mess it up. So I just let the pawn be moved. And the pawn was me, and it got moved to Ashland.
When you say that you felt like you're a pawn on this chessboard, that you were drawn to Ashland, what did that feel like? You actually had to physically go and move and sell a house. What did that feel like?
I went to a couple of retreats that Gangaji had. One was in Ashland and one was in California. And I just knew she was my teacher, and I wanted to be where she was. It was really that simple. It was this is a point in your life you have found. I've never looked for a teacher that was spiritual. She was given to me, and I just had no option but to move so that I could have the advantage of being where she was. And all of her people are here. There's a large group of spiritual individuals who live here that the support is tremendous for people who are spiritual in this town. And also, many of them do psilocybin as well. It's a very wonderful group to have support with.
You were saying that you realized anesthesiology was not part of your life's work anymore, and that you were more concerned with your spiritual well-being and the spiritual well-being of others. What does that mean? You're concerned with the spiritual well-being of others.
That's a hard question to answer in a short period of time. Mostly it's the desire for people to wake up to who they are, to realize that they're, in my opinion, an eternal being that lives in a human body, not a human body that has a soul, but a soul that happens to live in a human body. And I sincerely think our only job on this earth is to evolve, to become kinder people. If we did that, that would solve the world, to just be kind. As the Dalai Lama says, my religion is kindness. I'm with him. My religion, I have no religion. If I do, though, it would be kindness. And that's the most important thing, is kindness to yourself and to other people. And most people are not very kind to themselves. And psilocybin is a great teacher of being kind to yourself. That is her fundamental lesson, is be kind to yourself.
You said earlier that this is what you feel that you should be doing, that you have landed upon your life's work. This is your purpose now. That kindness as your compass, is that part of why you feel like you have landed in the right spot?
Yes, because I truly think psilocybin's take-home message is be kind to yourself. When you're kind to yourself, then you have the capacity to be kind to other people. And I think in the hallucination, in the treatment of that medicine, she shows you how valuable you are to the world, to yourself, to your family, to your friends, and thereby take care of yourself, be kind to yourself. And people in the world are really stressed, and they're really running as fast as they can. And she wants you to slow down and tend to yourself, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, and that in yourself is everyone. There is no other. We're all one being, just with different legs and different arms. So when you take care of yourself, you take care of your friends, your family, you take care of strangers. You don't do mean things to people that you don't know. There is no other, in other words.
There are a lot of people who have never experienced psilocybin, who have heard what it's like, and maybe they've heard about people having bad trips. You say that the core experience in the lesson is kindness. Can you explain about how that might work to somebody who maybe has heard of people having scary experiences? How is it that the message is kindness when they might be afraid of something that they're seeing in a hallucination?
I personally don't think there's any such thing as a bad trip. I think people see what they need to see. Some of the things that we've dealt with in our life are not pleasant. They're not nice to go back and revisit. There's parts of everyone, pretty much as childhood, that they really don't want to go back and look at again. But that may be where psilocybin takes you. It may take you back to that boss that you hated 20 years ago, or to your mother that you felt didn't love you, or to your father who did something else. You may go back and visit those traumas. I personally have never done that. I've certainly have traumas in my life like everyone else, but psilocybin has never taken me back to look at those traumas. I think possibly because I've tried to work through those traumas for years in my life to settle them. And to me, they're pretty well settled. I just want to evolve to be a better human. So when you start, when you've never taken a look under the hood of yourself, there's probably a lot of things in there that have never been examined. And some of those things can be pretty dark, depending on the person. So maybe the first visit under the hood can be pretty dark. You may go see some things that were very traumatic to you in the past, but you're looking at them from older, more mature eyes. So you can see maybe the viewpoint from your mother or the viewpoint from your father, that maybe they were doing the best they could. And so that lets you go, oh, maybe I could just let go of all that stuff and not carry it around any longer. So sometimes, a lot of times, people are exhausted physically and mentally when the journey is over. But I think most things in life that are hard are worth doing. And so sometimes the journeys that are the hardest have the best benefit to the person afterwards because they have explored and released traumas and things from their past that they've been carrying around for generations without any resolution. So, bad journey? I don't think so. I really don't. I think it's just what people need to see to let go of their history, of their story, let go of their story.
And then the kindness is what follows that, or is it what that is wrapped inside without them knowing it?
Most people, that is wrapped inside that. I mean, most people under psilocybin talk to someone. I don't know who they're talking to. Occasionally someone may say someone's name, but they may be having quiet conversation that I don't hear, or they may be talking for 5 hours. And I write it all down. I don't know what it means, but I write it all down. So who are they talking to? It could be themselves, their ego. It could be God. It could be psilocybin. It could be their Aunt Betty. I don't know who they're talking to. They're just talking. Sometimes people will identify that it's their father or their mother or their brother or someone that they're talking to. They'll say their name. But whoever they're talking to usually is giving them words of wisdom, things to remember. That was not so bad. Why don't you let that go? And one of the things that the voice often says is, one of the things she shows is your importance, how important you are in this life, that you are important to everyone around you, that you're connected to everyone around you. So it makes you feel more connected to the earth, to your friends and family, and even to people that you don't know, to the human race, we'll put it that way. So that you're never really alone, even when you're alone, because you're always connected. So when you feel love from your family, from your friends, from the human race, and you feel love toward the earth and all those people that are on the earth, the ultimate result of that is being kind. You stop talking negatively to yourself and you're kind to yourself.
You're having a lot of very spiritual, ethereal experiences and conversations here. And this is part of your work. You live in that world. Were you like this when you were an anesthesiologist?
To a degree, yes. Yes. If someone was maybe dying, I certainly would get in their ear and talk to them in that process. The spiritual capacity of myself has always been here since I was a little child. I've tried every different religion that you can think of at some point. So, spiritual curiosity, I've always realized that we're all one, that you may not know the person who's you're taking care of, but it's you. They deserve your respect and your care and your kindness.
When you said if you were with somebody and they might be dying and you might say something, what type of thing would you say?
That's a good question. I might tell them if they think that they want to stay here, that this would be a good time to come back into their body if they're out of their body. And if they don't want to stay here, that, we will do everything we can to keep them here if they want us to stay here, but if they want to stay here, but if they don't, go with Godspeed. I've done that a number of times when I knew that the chance of someone surviving at that moment was pretty nil.
So you said it was around July that you made the decision, I don't want to do this, and then you left at New Year's Eve that year. In that period of time, what was the hardest part about making that decision?
I really enjoyed residents, but I just didn't have the capacity to talk to them or teach them. And I would hide in my office and they would come find me. And I'd be like, because I was so emotionally drained, I just didn't have anything I didn't want to talk about my
Mhm.
husband dying. I didn't want to talk about what I'd been through. And I was hiding. Yeah, so that was it. I really loved the residents and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Right. How did you tell them? That was something that was very difficult and something that you wanted to be able to do. How did you reconcile that?
I'm not someone who's very good at goodbye. On the last day that I worked, I was supposed to work the next Saturday on call, and I left that day, said goodbyes, went out the door, and when I got to my car, I called someone else and said, "Can you take my Saturday call?" And I never went back. And that you could say that was it was a pretty chickeny way to come out, but I knew that people like to say goodbye, and I just was not mentally or emotionally equipped at the moment to do that. So I sort of went out the back door. And do I regret that? I don't know. I don't know. It was a hard decision, but one that I felt necessary at the time. And some of the people I'd worked with for, even one woman in particular I'd worked with in Lubbock for 15 years before that, we're still good friends. I mean, she comes to Ashland to visit me, but I just didn't want to be, I don't like to be the center of attention. So I didn't want to be the center of attention at a, oh, Bonnie's leaving, let's all say goodbye type thing. It's like, no, it's like singing happy birthday in a restaurant. No, 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 no. Yeah, same type of thing.
Did you feel like you were letting people down? Is that what it was?
I felt like I needed to change. I needed to move on with my life, to do something different. I'd given anesthesia a long time and it was just done. So no, I didn't feel like I was letting anyone down. There's lots of teachers, professors, associate professors, everybody there. The university is huge. You know, there was hundreds of people in our department. So no, any vacuum is quickly filled by people that are just as qualified as you are. So no, it didn't affect. I did miss the residents that I've gotten to know, the ones who were still there at that time, but it was clear it was time to move on.
Once it became clear to you, and it still took 6 months, what was it that kept you there that 6 months instead of saying, I
Yeah,
don't belong here anymore, I'm quitting tomorrow?
it's a professional thing. You give a long notice when you're leaving so that they have ample time to find a replacement for you if they don't have one. I would never want to leave a department shorthanded because there's a lot of call and a lot of work that has to be done. And so you give a long notice so that they know you're leaving long before you leave. That's just a professional courtesy. It's not, I decided I'm done and quitting tomorrow. I would
Right.
not imagine that because there's a lot of places you fit in a schedule. And when you're not there, if you do it quickly, somebody else has to pick up all those spots. And so if you do it over a long period, they know you're going to be gone. So they fill in and they're ready for you to then, okay, see you later, take care, walk out the door. And it doesn't cause disruption in the flow of the workload.
Was there anybody in your life, friends, family, anybody who thought that you shouldn't leave?
I guess I really didn't ask anyone's permission. I just made that decision. I'm adulting. It's time for me to quit doing this. My children both lived in Austin at the time. So I built a house in Austin and moved to Austin from San Antonio. But I didn't like Austin very much. I didn't feel like I fit in there. It was too busy, too much motion. So I didn't stay there very long, maybe a year and a half before I sold my house and officially moved to Ashland. I rented a house in Ashland while my house was in Austin sitting empty. My friends enjoyed it. They could go to Austin and stay at my house, but yeah,
So,
I lived in Ashland for a year before I bought the house and then made it a permanent thing.
so your plan then, when you were leaving, was to retire. Is that
Yes.
right? You said, I'm done working. This doesn't work for me anymore. Great. Everything was wonderful. And you moved to be near your kids, realized that that wasn't where you wanted to be, and then started visiting Ashland, and then came and became part of this more spiritual environment. And were you taking psilocybin with your new spiritual community?
No, what I first did for a year and a half, I was a student at a place called the Leela School, and it's a therapy school, how to be a therapist. And I did that for a year and a half, and it just didn't quite fit. But the same man, Eli Jackson Bear, who runs the legal school, is the same one who opened the psilocybin school. And so I quit the Leela school after about a year and a half, but he knew me because I'd been in that school. And then about maybe 6 months later is when he said, "Hey, I'm going to start this psilocybin thing. You interested?" And I was like, "Sure." So I don't believe there are coincidences. I think it was just took a little while for the pieces to fall in place.
When you started going to the Leela School and you were going to become a therapist, did you always want to become a therapist? And when did that happen? Was that when you were still in Austin and coming back and forth?
No, I was here and I knew Eli and Gangaji, and I was looking for a way to get more involved with them because COVID, everything had sort of closed everything down. And the Leela school sends out when their new school starts. And I got an email and I thought, I'll try that, see if that gives me something to do that I enjoy. And I went to do that for a year and a half and met people who are much in my circle of friends now by doing that. Many of them are graduates from that school, but it just didn't quite fit for me. It wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't fit. It didn't feel right. And so after a year and a half, I went, yeah, I don't really want to continue this and quit. And then within about 6 months is when the psilocybin school started. And I was in the perfect place to do that.
Was there something inside of you that said, I want to keep helping, or do I want to keep working, or I'm bored? What was happening on the inside of you that you even thought to do something professionally?
It's a spiritual quest. I mean, he's Gangaji's husband. Gangaji's my teacher, but I thought, well, he's a wise man. I'll go and learn from him. He's been doing this a really long time. And I knew a lot of the people in the school and thought, well, this will be a good fit because I was not working. I wasn't really doing anything. And I thought, yeah, I'll just do this. It was online some and in person some. And I liked it, but something about it just wasn't the fit for me. And so I quit and I was just kind of hanging out for 6 months. And that's when the psilocybin school started.
So you already had that drive to be doing something
Yeah, I always have a
wellness.
drive to be doing something, to eternal student, to be learning something. So it was just
Okay.
another avenue that had not been explored that I looked to see if it was a fit, and it just didn't seem to fit. But then when I found psilocybin,
What was it that clicked for you when you found psilocybin?
so back in the early 2000s, I did started some research at University of Texas looking at depression. And I wanted to look at it in pregnant women, but I couldn't get assistance from the obstetricians for that. So I ended up going to psychiatry and working with the Department of Psychiatry for about 2 years, looking at ketamine, using it to treat depression. And that was when ketamine, not many people knew about it. I'd read a couple of books about it and thought, I use ketamine every day. Why not? So I started a study that went on for a couple of years, I guess. Eventually, though I closed it because I felt like it was a little tiny band-aid and a much bigger problem. For some people, less than 1% of the people, it really flipped a switch and really helped with their depression. So they were remarkably better, if not cured of their depression. But everybody else, it was like a transient improvement. And then they would slip back into their depression. And so seeing the nature of that for the majority of people, vast majority of people, it was expensive and it just didn't seem to work well enough to warrant it. So I dropped it. Well, when I found psilocybin, that's another thing. I started reading because Eli asked me about it. I started reading everything insatiably that I could get my hands on about psilocybin and depression and PTSD, anxiety. And the studies were very, very clear. This is what I was looking for. This was something that scientifically had been proven to be effective, maybe permanently for some people who did it, not just 1%, but maybe 30 or 40% of them would have this dramatic change. And I was all in. I had done other hallucinogens in my 50s, again, spiritually looking around to see what I could find. And I had not done psilocybin before then, but jumped in like I do most things with head first and discovered it was like the perfect fit for what I was looking for. And for most people, probably 30 to 40% of people, it's life changing. For maybe the next 30 to 40%, it's remarkably better to slightly improved, and then there's maybe 10 to 20% it doesn't help. But that's better than any medicine on the market. So what an opportunity to sit and use all my anesthesia skills to sit with people while they unravel their story and come out either a different person or someone who is vastly better than they were before.
When you start participating in the school and becoming a teacher and a student, was there anybody in your life who thought, that's weird? What were the responses that you were getting?
Actually, because a member of my family, I won't be more specific than that, but a member of my family had really suffered from depression, suicidal depression when they were younger. And I had seen ketamine make a dramatic difference, just literally flipped a switch for them so they could go on with their life without carrying that burden around. I had a real interest in depression because I had really seen people suffering with depression. That's what drew me to the ketamine with women with the postpartum depression, what drove me to do studies with women in general with depression. And then here I am with psilocybin, same thing, depression, anxiety, PTSD. I was in the reserves for 12 years, so I have a real passion to offer my services to veterans, who are about a third of my clients, I would suppose. I mean, it's this beautiful fungus that has just been on the planet longer than us, perfectly fits our serotonin receptors. That's not accidental. So it's meant for us to use it to heal ourselves. And it is miraculous to watch what it does with people. I mean, I have the lucky ability to sit in a chair for 10 or so times a month where I watch people undergo this life-altering experience. And it's quite the privilege.
How does that change you?
It makes me have a lot of gratitude for the fact that it's on the planet, for the fact that Oregon has legalized it, for the fact that I happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right substance to sit in a chair and watch people heal themselves from their traumas. I mean, like I said, I'm a pawn on a chessboard, and if I move the pieces, I'm going to really mess it up. So I just don't move them. I just let the universe move them. And the people who come to me it's not an accident that they come to me. They come to me because they fit with what I'm offering. And so I don't chase people to get them to come to me. The ones who come to me they're given to me for a reason, to care for them, and take care of them, and get them through this journey.
Tell me about the first time that you facilitated a psilocybin journey with someone. What was that like for you?
I did it underground a little bit before I came above ground. But not all that much, though. A little bit of experience.
You yourself took psilocybin underground, is what you're saying.
Myself, I
Yes.
took it. I gave it to
Yes.
other people a little bit underground before I came to Satya. But I can tell you, my very first client at Satya was a woman, and she was a professional with raising children, working full time. And she talked to a light socket for 5 hours. You know how you look at a light socket and it kind of looks like a little face, little eyes and a little mouth. She sat on the floor and had an intense conversation with this light socket. And the light socket, she kept going back and forth. And she finally said, yeah. I know what you mean. Okay, yeah, I get it. Okay. And then she stopped for a moment. And this makes me a little bit emotional, but she said, okay, I guess you're right. I can be enough. I guess I'm enough. Okay. I don't have to keep trying so hard. I am actually enough. And I just sat there going, wow. It was amazing that this woman who was dancing as fast as she could understood that she was enough. I never looked back after that. It was like, ooh, I'm home. It was beautiful. I think of her all the time. She's the only person who's ever talked to a light socket. Very cute. But anyway,
Wow.
she's never gone back from her depression. It's been almost 2 years, and she's thriving.
And in terms of the other people that you have helped and that you facilitated, are there any other profound experiences that you want to share about?
It's very personal. And I've done a lot of clients. I'm in the 170s somewhere. And so, no, I don't. I share her story just because it was the first one, and nobody could ever figure out who she was unless she happened to listen to this podcast. But No, everybody's is very, very different. Veterans seem to do better than the majority of people. Their outcome is a little bit higher than the general population. And I think that's because they are mature individuals who have already faced their worst fears. And they've been traumatized by something that happened to them during that time, but they're not afraid of psilocybin. It may scare them half to death while they're in the journey, but they come to peace with all of it. And so they seem to have in my experience, the best results. I would say they're, gosh, 40 to 50% of the time they get better. And if I do chase any clients, it is veterans. I will put them in any time of month, even if my schedule's full, because we owe that to them. I mean, they protect us, right? They give their lives for us. They have my highest respect.
Did you plan on working with veterans when you first started?
No, they have PTSD. I mean, they're the ones you hear about always, right? Is PTSD. And so there's lots of things that are better than psilocybin. MDMA is probably better with PTSD, but it's not legal in Oregon. So there are people who do offer MDMA for people in other countries, and I'm sure underground everywhere. But I, I chose to become a legal facilitator, so I only do psilocybin. I do have clients who ask me about other things. I only do psilocybin. I don't do it underground anymore. I only do it at Satya. My job or the reason I do that is because I am legal, I don't want to lose my license, and I want Satya to stay in business. And so every client I take to them makes them more likely to stay in business. And it's very important for me that the facilitation companies in Oregon stay in business. This medicine cannot go back underground again.
Is there anybody in your life that thinks that what you've done, this transition that you've made, is strange?
Well, I'm sure there are. They probably don't tell me that. I mean, my sons are very, very supportive. They're both in their 30s and they're very supportive of what their mom does. My family, as far as I know, is very supportive. Even colleagues that I worked with in anesthesia. I mean, I have a lot of anesthesia friends that I've had forever. Some of them have come maybe to see me as clients. They send their patients to see me as clients. Psilocybin is lots of studies going on with fibromyalgia and complex regional pain syndrome. So psilocybin can be useful for other things than mental health. It can also be for physical health for people who have chronic pain. And so I have a lot of friends who are pain doctors, and they're very interested in what I'm doing. They don't, I mean, I'm sure there's some of them that go, Bonnie's a little woo woo, but I don't care. That's okay. I'm very comfortable where I am and what I'm doing, and I see the results when I do it. I mean, it is miraculous. I mean, yesterday I actually was in a journey, and we have a common text thread for the day for people who are working in case we need backup. And my statement yesterday was, I am just in awe of this medicine, just literally in awe. Just watching what it does I don't do anything. I mean, I literally sit in a corner and take notes that I give then to the client. I don't keep any notes about them, but I give them a copy of the notes I take from their journey so they can take it to their therapist or whoever they use to help with their mental health. I'm just a scribe, but what an honored position to sit and hold the safety or hold the space of someone who's in a vulnerable position, to keep them safe, to feel safe in that space.
Did you have any trepidation whatsoever in terms of starting on this new career?
No, it's like moving to Ashland. I don't know that I had a choice. I mean, it was just, here you go, do this. And I'm like, okay, I think it's my purpose, and I'm on the earth is to do this, not to do anesthesia or maybe giving birth to my children. That's a really good thing that I did. But yeah, this is the most important thing I've ever been part of.
For anybody who has a question of what their purpose is, what does it feel like? Can you describe what that feels like if somebody's saying, I think I might know my purpose, or how am I going to know it's my purpose? What does that feel like?
It feels like I'm home, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I don't have any striving to do anything different. This eventually will end. I mean, I'm 74. At some point, I'll decide this is too much for me to continue doing. But for right now, and I don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow, it's just now. For right now, this is perfect. It's exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I don't need anything more. That's it.
Yeah. What would you say to anybody who thinks that they're going to retire and says, I know I can't do this thing anymore? Do you have anything that you would say to somebody who maybe is thinking, I don't know what my next thing might be, but maybe there is something?
Not knowing what you're going to do is great because then you're just in this moment. You're not worried about tomorrow or next year or last month, or you're just present, which is the only thing you can do. And so if you're ready to retire, some people do come do psilocybin because they're about to retire and they're trying to figure out their next step. That's one of the reasons people come to visit us. Does it answer that question? I don't know. Maybe for some people, maybe for others not. I've had a number of people who've come at crossroads in their life to know whether to turn left or right. And what happens with them in psilocybin is their own business. Sometimes clients don't tell you everything that goes on in those journeys. There's a lot that goes on that they don't say, they don't speak, but they remember. And that's their own private conversation. So I don't try to go there. I have certain things I go over with people afterwards. Mostly it's be kind to yourself. That's really the take home lesson that I always have, that psilocybin always has. Could I just retire? Yeah, I'm sure I could, but this just seemed to be where I was told to go. And I don't work that much. I work 10 days a month.
Did you have to unlearn anything in order to do the work that you're doing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, anesthesia is primarily pharmacology. I love it, and my brain loves it. I like to figure out how drugs work. I don't really like all the drugs people are on, but I can figure out how they work. So mixing psilocybin into that mixture is fun for my brain to look at it and go, huh, wonder how those things work together. It was just a natural fit for someone who has a scientific brain, but also is maybe a little altered in that they do hallucinogenics on the side. And so it was it's it was just a perfect fit. No other way to explain it. Just it was just meant to be. Could I be knitting and watching soap operas? Maybe. I don't really see that, but maybe some point.
My last, at least what I think is going to be my last question is, you are in a situation professionally that most people would aspire to say that this is where I belong. This is what I was meant to do. Do you have any advice for anybody who is not in that situation on how to get in that situation? How to get into the place where you say, I am finally doing what I'm supposed to do?
I think in life, most of the time, if we pay attention to the present moment, the universe tells us where to go. I think the roadway, I mean, when I was going to medical school, when I was a nurse before I went to med school, and I changed my major in college to pre-med. I felt like I was on a runway that all the lights were lit up. There was not an off ramp. It was just go down this runway. Same with psilocybin. Like I have a force that's directed me to go to this path. I got into medical school easily. Med school I enjoyed it. It was hard, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed residency. I loved my practice. When it closed, another runway lit up, and that led me to Ashland to psilocybin. So maybe I'm just lucky that the universe drags me around where it wants to go. But I think if we're quiet and we sit just in silence and ask for direction, we're commonly given it. I think we're just so busy that we don't pick up the cues, and we have to really take the time to be still and go inward and look and see where do we need to go? What is our goal? Why are we here? That's really the question. You know, who am I and why am I here? That's ultimately the question. And everyone answers it differently.
You have it, but you feel that pretty much we'd all have that ability to be able to be quiet and be guided.
Yeah, I think we do if we just stop long enough to listen. And it can be, it can be religion, it can be spiritual, it can be none of the above. I just think if we pay attention, the pathway is pretty lit up. At least it has been for me. That's my only experience. I've not been anyone else that I know, at least not in this lifetime. So I only have this experience to go by.
I think I know the answer to this last question. Knowing where you ended up, was there anything that you would change along the way?
You do undoubtedly know this answer. No, there's parts of my life I look back that have been hard or been easy or been fun or been painful, but every single one of them brought me to this chair, and I wouldn't change anything.
If people want to get a hold of you, can you tell us the name? And I'll put it in the show notes, your website address. If they have any questions, I'm assuming that they can reach out to you and they can contact you on your website.
Yeah, it is psilocybinjourneyguide.com. My cell phone is on there. My email address is on there. I always answer if someone reaches out. I'm happy to answer any questions on any subject. Doesn't even have to be psilocybin, but mostly it's questions on psilocybin. I will reach out to you if you contact me, usually via email. I will respond to the email that you leave me. And then we'll go from there, and however you want to proceed is what we do.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. It's always great to see someone who lands exactly in the thing that they're supposed to be doing. They're fulfilling their life's work. I look forward to seeing you again and catching back up to you maybe sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Sherry. I appreciate it.
Okay, wow. So it is never too late to make a career change. So Bonnie was 69. I mean, what about the part where she says that this is what she was meant to do? So she makes a career change, not even a career change. She decides that she's going to retire at 69 and just figures she's going to just go about her life. And then she stumbles upon this opportunity to be a psilocybin facilitator, instructor, and student at the same time. And then goes ahead and goes forward with it, and then realizes that this is not just what she's doing next, but this is what her work as an anesthesiologist has led her to. Okay, so this is, I just love that. I just love knowing that it's never too late. It's never too late. As long as you keep going. Okay. Thank you for watching Sequel Opportunities. I will see you next time.